Hi, I'm Corinne the Gossipy Girl. I'm here to talk about a story of me working at Tesla in Nevada. The title of this story is Secrets of Tesla in Nevada. Before we begin, I want to share a brief disclaimer. Everything in this episode is my personal experience, a spiritual interpretation of my time working in this environment. I'm not making any legal allegations, nor am I speaking on behalf of any company or individual. What I share reflects how these events impacted my health and spirit. Others may relate differently, and I honor that. My story is not meant to blame or accuse, only to speak truth for healing purpose. Thank you for listening with understanding. Tonight's episode is personal. Before I begin sharing Nevada spiritual stories, I lived through one inside one of the most high-tech buildings in the state. I worked at the Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada. I'm not here to reveal corporate secrets or attack anyone. I'm here to share where it felt like to exist inside of space that moved faster than the human spirit was built to move. The work was demanding. I was injured more than once, but what stayed for far longer than any physical strain was the pressure, the silence, and the energy. At times, it felt like the building held a presence, like the walls remembered. Even some leads and supervisors seemed spiritually pushed towards decisions that didn't feel like their own, not because they were uncaring, but because the system often demanding more than what was human. This was meant to be a long-term place to build a life where employees could retire. People moved their families expecting stability. Yet some arrived for their shift only to learn they no longer had a job. And while people were being let go, new hires continued to arrive. I began to question if the land had ever spiritually accepted this building at all. Long before the factory, there was only desert land, Nevada land, ancient powerful spirituals. The building didn't grow from the land, it was placed over it rapidly. The native people honored the land's stillness and energy. They knew the earth holds memory. But the factory rose quickly without time for spiritual grounding. Some of us felt it, like the land's whispering. This wasn't meant to stand here. Not like this. That spiritual imbalance didn't stay inside the factory. Even the commute carried it. There was an incident involving transportation that deeply affected me. I won't assign blame or detail here, but it left a lasting spiritual emotional impact. Most unsettling was not only what happened, but how quickly it was followed by silence. Some experiences like this were never documented, not because they didn't happen, but because they weren't spoken. It wasn't just major incidents. Employees were getting hurt, choosing not to report it, not because their pain wasn't real, but because fear of losing their job felt more dangerous than the injury itself. In places where silence becomes routine, what's unrecorded often carries the strongest energy. A day or two after two employees were found unresponsive in a vehicle on site, a friend of mine, I'm not going to say her name, parked in the same area after her shift. She was on the phone with her husband when suddenly she went quiet. She later says she didn't see anyone but felt a presence. Not threatening, not angry, just lost. She quietly said, "I'm not alone right now." The lot was almost empty. It felt like energy unsure whether to go home or return inside. That was the last night she paused there. From then on, she left immediately. Energy doesn't always end where it begins. It lingers until acknowledged. Even before stepping inside daily, many of us were already spiritually bracing ourselves. Inside the factory, everything was built for speed. The machines never rest. Human schedules were aligned for productions, not well-being. But the land outside moved at the speed of dust and wind. The human spirit moved slower. When we're pushed to move faster than our soul can travel, a quiet separation takes place inside. I wasn't just tired, I was become spiritually displaced. In 2019, an employee was found unresponsive on the third floor. No alarm, no visible disturbance, just gone. What impacted many wasn't only the loss, but how long it went unnoticed in the noise. Something shifted after that, not in operations, but in presence. People started leaving quickly. People started leaving quietly. Some quit unexpectedly, some learned at shift start they no longer had one. New hires still continued coming in. The big building became less a workplace and more of a passage. Some left physically, some stayed, but had spiritually checked out. Without realizing it, it was becoming one. I was becoming one of them. My departure began while I was on short-term disability. Doctors submitted everything. More was continually was requested of the doctor. I was denied clearance despite clear restrictions. Meanwhile, I knew others with similar notes who had been allowed to return. With no income and insurance slipping away, I was still asked to prove pain I was already living in. My spirit finally said, "You are fighting too hard in a place unwilling to listen. Stop fighting them. Start protecting yourself." I didn't leave because I gave up. I left because staying meant abandoning myself. If, Even after leaving, I wake at night believing I still had hours left in the shift. I still heard machines in silence. Spiritual injury lasts longer than physical strain. The hardest part wasn't the pain, it was the silence around it. Healing began when I said what I experienced was real. I stopped trying to return to who I was before. I began honoring the one who survived. Healing isn't moving backward, it's carrying wisdom forward. If a place demands more than your soul can carry, it's not your place to stay. If you ever stayed silent just to get through, worked somewhere that moved faster than your well-being, or felt yourself slowly fading just to survive, this is for you. Leaving isn't failure, sometimes it's survival. You are not a machine. You are human. You are a spirit. You are allowed to walk away from what does not honor that. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to be whole. Maybe healing the land begins when the people do. I'm Corinne, your gossipy girl, and tonight I spoke the truth, my experience, and my truth and my spirit remembers, and the experience I went through working at Tesla. Thank you for listening. May your pace be your own. May your spirit be safe. And may every place that once felt heavy finally release you. Good night.